You're listening to the OFM Business Hour on The Sound of Your Life with me, Olebogeng Motsi. Now tonight, Kristel van Rensburg from ENS Africa's tax division is breaking down the significant changes that have been proposed by Treasury alongside the South African Revenue Service to Section 20 of the Taxation Laws Amendment Bill and how this is set to impact the corporate income tax rate and the limit to assessed losses. She's actually going to be delving into how this will impact your business specifically. Here's my conversation with her. Kristel, we understand that Treasury recently published the Draft Taxation Laws Amendment Bill. What is outlined in the bill?
One of the most radical changes being proposed in the Draft Taxation Laws Amendment Bill is the limitation of the carry forward of assessed losses. It's a change to Section 20 of the Income Tax Act, which will mean, if this goes forward, that taxpayers that have a taxable income in any year can only carry forward 80% of that taxable income of their assessed losses. So let's take an example. If your taxable income of a year is 500 Rand, you can only carry forward 400 Rand of losses, even if you may have 1,000 Rand worth of losses, which means that you will only be setting off 400 against that 500, meaning that you'll pay tax on 100. So even if you've had lots of losses carry forward from previous years, you'll be limited and you'll almost pay a minimum tax.
Well, what impact will this then have, this proposed amendment to Section 20? What will it have on South African businesses that are still struggling, especially on the back of COVID and a sluggish economy?
The major problem here is that it will affect certain businesses, especially businesses that have really struggled through, especially the COVID pandemic. And then there's also other businesses that may not have struggled as much because of the COVID pandemic, but just because of the nature of the type of industry that they're in. What this means is that effectively your businesses that's always been very that flourish and that's in a very positive position will get the benefit of a reduced income tax rate. But then your companies that have big losses carry forward, the moment that they make taxable income and it starts recovering, they will not be able to set off the losses suffered from the times that they were struggling or where there was a major cash outflow or investment, for instance, in agriculture, and they will only be able to set off a limited amount of tax assessed losses against that income, meaning that the cash flow will be constrained, there will be major impact on their cash flows, impact on future investment because they won't have the cash, or it will increase their funding cost. They won't be able to pay off funding as quick as they can. So I think for some industries and some taxpayer types, this will have a big impact.
I'm speaking to Kristel van Rensburg. She's a director at ENS Africa's tax division. You make mention of the fact that the agriculture and mining industry will be hardest hit. Why do you say so?
So if we just take the agricultural industry, they are very cyclical, which means that, let's take an example of an orchard. They plant trees and only after 8 years they'll start harvesting, which means that they'll probably only start generating income in the 8th year. Now, throughout the 8-year period, they will be incurring losses, so they won't be paying tax. But in that 8th year where they've had the harvest, they'll probably have a taxable income in that year. Now, if this goes through, then they'll pay a minimum tax because they'll only be allowed to set off 80% of their taxable income in that year, meaning that they'll have a cash outflow of tax, notwithstanding that they have a lot of losses, which means that if they wanted to repay debt quickly or they wanted to use cash for future investments or the next orchard that they want to plant, this will severely impact that decision making because now they have to pay the tax. Agricultural business, for instance, has been very reliant actually on the loss cycle, and it's actually been used as a type of a subsidy from government with regard to agriculture. The other issue is with new entrants into the agricultural sector specifically. It's very investment intensive in the beginning. There's a lot of outflow. In the moment that you start generating taxable income, you have to pay an amount of tax, even if you had a lot of losses previous years. Just from the mining sector, mining is also cyclical. At the moment, some companies are doing very well in South Africa in the mining industry, and it's because of a various reasons. But minerals, for instance, are very cyclical. They also go down in price. And having the cash available now, by setting off all their losses of previous years, they can actually plan forward and make the necessary investments and put away the money, repay debt quickly, all that. But if this amendment comes in, then they're going to have to pay an amount of minimum tax, which means that they'll have less cash to actually invest or plan forward for the time when the mineral prices are actually low.
Kristel, you said earlier that you felt that the proposed amendments were premature. What's the next stage for the bill in terms of it being publicized? What's the next stage in terms of it becoming law?
So we've had interested parties have made their submissions to National Treasury, and there were also presentations made to the Parliamentary Committee. Then we had workshops with National Treasury about 2 weeks ago, where I believe, based on the conversations had there, that National Treasury really understands now the issue yet. They have not made any commitments on what's going to happen, but the next step is they prepare a response document to the Parliamentary Committee, and then following that decisions by the Parliamentary Committee, a final bill is then published. In my experience, that normally happens around November. And then we will see if this is going through. The indication we got from those sessions, and then obviously I have to caveat that those sessions happen, you can't take anything in that session that will happen, but the sense I got is that if they do postpone this amendment, they're also going to postpone the reduction in the corporate income tax rate, because I see this almost as one package. And although some people have made the recommendations of what other countries have been doing in this regard, I'm not so sure that they'll actually take that on board immediately. I think it's more likely that they'll maybe postpone. That's actually what we're hoping for, so that we can have more consultation with them in the coming years, so that we can really draft the legislation that it works for all parties.
And that was Kristel van Rensburg from ENS Africa's tax division. She was breaking down those significant changes to the taxation laws amendment bill.